welcome to the deep dive. You sent in some truly fascinating stuff exploring this hidden connection between music and math. And that's exactly what we're going to, unpack today.
Yeah, it's quite a topic.
We'll be looking at how a surprising amount of what we hear and love in music, well, from individual notes right up to the grand structure of songs, it kind of rests on a foundation of mathematics.
That's right. And the material you shared gives a great overview. It touches on, well, pretty much everything. Physics of sound, how we tune instruments.
Right.
The mathematical patterns, within scales, chords, rhythm, even how melodies and lyrics are put together.
So our mission today.
Our mission, is to dive deep into these ideas. We want to reveal the underlying mathematical framework of this art form. Hopefully you'll have some moments where things just click into place in a whole new way.
Okay, let's kick off with a story then. It really sets the stage, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine Pythagoras, yes, the triangle guy, not just thinking about geometry, but wandering into a blacksmith shop.
Right, the famous story.
As it goes, he noticed the hammers making these, harmonious sounds.
No.
And he figured out it was all about their weights.
Simple as that, apparently.
4 hammers, right?
Yeah.
Weighing 12, 9, 8, and 6 pounds. And they produced specific musical intervals, like the 12-pounder and the 6-pounder. That created an octave, a perfect 2.1 ratio.
Yeah, the fundamental relationship.
Then the 12 and the 8 gave us a perfect fifth, which is what, a 3.2 ratio?
Exactly, 3.2.
And the 12 and the 9 made a perfect fourth, 4.3 ratio. Just simple whole number ratios making these consonant sounds. It makes you wonder, doesn't it?
It really does.
Could the harmony we hear actually be, the voice of numbers?
And what's fascinating is how that ancient discovery, it's still a fundamental principle in music theory today. Those straightforward ratios, they're still at the core. When we talk about how music is tuned now, we basically run into 2 main systems.
Right.
Just intonation and equal temperament. So just intonation, it prioritizes intervals built on those pure whole number frequency ratios. Think of a major chord in just intonation. The frequencies of the 3 notes relate perfectly. 4 to 5 to 6.
4, 5, 6. Okay.
Yeah, and this gives you incredibly pure intervals. They come directly from the natural harmonic series of a single note.
So it's like the universe has these perfect mathematical relationships just sort of built into sound itself.
You could certainly see it that way. It's inherent in the physics.
But then there's equal temperament, which you said has been standard for, most Western music since the 1700s. How is that different?
Right. So equal temperament takes a different approach. Still very clever, mind you. It divides the octave, that fundamental 2.1 frequency, doubling into exactly 12 equal logarithmic steps.
Logarithmic.
Yeah, think of it like increasing the frequency by the same percentage for each half step. Every semitone, like each key on a piano, is a frequency multiplied by the 12th root of 2.
Okay, the 12th root of 2.
Yeah. Sounds complicated, but the result is simple. Every half step is exactly the same size.
Ah, I see.
Which is incredibly useful. It means you can play in any key, modulate anywhere, and it sounds consistent.
But there's a but, isn't there?
Well, yes. This uniformity means that most intervals in equal temperament are actually slight compromises. They're not quite those pure ratios from just intonation. They become, subtly irrational, mathematically speaking.
So while it lets us play smoothly in C-sharp minor and F major, it's a bit of a mathematical trade-off. We lose that perfect purity.
That's a very insightful way to put it, yeah. A trade-off. Take a major third. In just intonation, it's a clean 5.4 ratio. That works out to about 386 cents.
Cents, like musical pennies.
Exactly. Tiny units to measure intervals precisely. So 386 cents for a pure major third. In equal temperament, though, a major third is always exactly 400 cents.
Okay. Not a huge difference, but noticeable.
It can be. Our ears sometimes pick up a slight beating or, roughness when those pure ratios are just a little bit off. But that shift to equal temperament, even with these tiny imperfections, it really revolutionized Western music. It let composers freely change keys without things sounding, drastically out of tune.
So a brilliant compromise, like you said.
Definitely. But importantly, whichever system you use, the octave is still foundational. Always that 2.1 frequency ratio. That's why notes an octave apart share the same name. Like your source said, 2 is the same as 1 in another octave. It's elegant mathematically.
Okay, so we've got this repeating octave pattern and these different ways, just or equal temperament of dividing the notes inside that octave.
Yeah.
Now, how do we arrange those notes to make scales? Like the major scale, that familiar do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
Exactly. Scales are built within that octave framework. The major scale, that sequence everyone knows, it follows a very specific pattern of intervals. It goes whole, whole, half, whole, half.
Whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half. Got it. Like a musical recipe.
Precisely. And in equal temperament, a whole step is just two semitones, two of those 212 multiplications.
It's a 212.
Right, and a half step is just one semitone, 212. But if you go back to just tuning, those steps again line up with neat ratios, like 98, 109, 54, different sizes, but pure ratios.
Wow. It's amazing that this simple melody we all know is built on such precise math. And to visualize how all these notes and keys relate, we have the circle of fifths.
Ah, yes, the circle of fifths. It's such a brilliant visual tool. It basically arranges all 12 musical tones in a circle, and moving clockwise from one note to the next is always a perfect fifth, that 3.2 ratio we talked about.
Okay, C to G, G to D, and so on.
Exactly. And as you move clockwise, you add sharps to the key signature. C has no sharps, G has one, D has two.
And counterclockwise adds flats.
Precisely. F has one flat, B flat has two, etc. The keys that are musically related, the ones that sound good together, end up right next to each other on the circle. It just beautifully shows the mathematical logic behind key signatures.
And didn't the source mention something called the Pythagorean comma?
Ah, yes. That's a fascinating little quirk. If you stack 12 perfectly pure 3.2 fifths on top of each other, C to G, G to D, all the way around, you don't quite end up back at C. You overshoot slightly.
Really?
Yeah, by a tiny amount called the Pythagorean comma. Equal temperament fixes this, essentially. It subtly squeezes each fifth just a tiny bit so that after 12 steps, you land exactly back where you started. It closes the circle perfectly.
Huh. Another clever compromise. So, okay, we have notes, scales, keys. When we start combining notes together, that's chords, right? And guess what? More math.
Absolutely, more math. Chords are fundamentally combinations of notes with specific mathematical relationships in their frequencies. Take that just major triad again, like C, E, G. We said the frequencies have that perfect 4.5.6 ratio.
Right, 400 hertz, 500 hertz, 600 hertz was the example.
Exactly. Those simple ratios create that consonant, pleasing sound we associate with a major chord. Minor triads, they feel different emotionally, but they also have mathematical underpinnings, often based on a 10.1.15 ratio, which is like 5 to 6 to 7.5. Still relatively simple ratios.
And where do these specific ratios like 4.5.6 or 10.1.15 actually come from?
Well, they're deeply connected to the harmonic series or overtones.
Overtones.
Yeah, when you play a single note on, say, a guitar string or a piano, it doesn't just produce one frequency. It produces a fundamental frequency, the one we hear is the pitch, plus a whole series of quieter, higher frequencies called overtones or harmonics. And guess what? The frequencies of these natural overtones follow simple whole number multiples of the fundamental. 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, 5 times the fundamental frequency, and so on.
So the ratios are naturally present in sound itself.
Precisely. Our ears are already kind of attuned to these relationships because they exist within single sounds. For instance, the third and fourth harmonics of a note naturally create the interval of a perfect fourth, a 4.3 ratio. The fourth and fifth harmonics make a major third, a 5.4 ratio.
Wow.
So it's like nature's inherent mathematics providing a blueprint for the consonant intervals we use to build chords.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. And these chords, they don't just sit there, do they? They move in progressions. Tell us about that really common one, the IIVV progression, say in C major.
Right, chord progressions. This is where music gets its sense of movement and expectation. And yes, it's based on those mathematical intervals again.